I didn't give you enough time to convert the recordings.
It's okay,
You'll still do it? Okay. Yeah, it does. You look good. I have still not mastered this Zoom in person together.
Are we ready to start? Okay, so welcome to, this is session 2, and I have 2 presenters here, and we also have people on Zoom, so I want to welcome Sarah Montero, who's Farm Director at Greenacres in April Hill, that's in Sheffield, and Laura Petrowski, Lauren, sorry, Petrowski, let me get that, Program Manager at Roots Rising in Pittsfield. And both of them work on with getting young people into farming, into working the soil. So I called this session Empowering Young People and Building Community. And they didn't know I was calling it that. I just sort of labeled it that. So we'll see if we can build that up to that theme. So if you don't know about Greenacres, you're going to hear some about it, but they welcome rural, suburban, and urban youth to hands-on activities and service projects to foster deeper connections with the environment. They do lots of other things. And April Hill is a farm and a beautiful space that you should go visit. Roots Rising is an award-winning nonprofit organization whose mission is to empower youth and build community through food and farming. And Lauren's going to talk about her role as program.
Roots Rising has taught me consistency and good work ethic.
That's good. The ability of Roots Rising programs to transform individuals and communities. So thank you both for being here. First, I'm going to be up here.
Yeah, you can go ahead and play a little video. I'm Lauren, I'm the program manager of Roots Rising. You can see our little.
Roots Rising has taught me consistency and good work ethic.
Working for Roots Rising has taught me to be a good communicator and find a home through the people around me.
Our crew members roll up their sleeves and work on local farms, in food pantries, and at our own farmers market. It is paid, meaningful work where Pittsfield teams from all walks of life come together and work side by side towards a common goal. Our crews cultivate empathy and resilience in our youth, leaving them feeling purposeful, capable, and connected.
Working for Roots Rising has shown me how much my actions have an impact on my community, and it gives me hope for our future.
Youth need community, a sense of meaning, and a place to belong. In our youth crews, we welcome teens exactly as they are, and they have the time and space to put away their phones and connect to themselves, each other, and the land.
Roots Rising impacted my life because it showed me that there's people in this world that still care about what's going on. And it also showed me that there's people that can care about me. Like, this is the first group that I've been in where I seem like I matter to people.
Roots Rising's youth crews are cultivating a generation of change makers.
Starting in the farm crews, I really got to learn a lot about myself, connect with my peers, my local farmers, and Earth. And then moving on to market crew, I got to see how our local food system needs to be supported by our community and how our local neighbors really benefit from this beautiful food grown in nursery. Roots Rising has always been a very special place in my heart.
To learn more about our transformative work, visit rootsrising.org.
I'm Lauren, I'm the program manager at Roots Rising. I've been farming for about a decade. I got into farming because I wanted to make a useful and meaningful impact on the health of our planet and our community in the face of climate crisis. I consider myself a regenerative farmer. I farm trying to actively improve the ecosystem where I farm. And I see that as starting with the soil, to the native flora and fauna, to the crops and animals that I have a guiding hand in raising, to the people who work on the farm, the community members who receive the produce from the farm. And for many years, I worked in this vein, and then I met Rich Rising. And the days when the youth crew came to the farm, I felt like I was hitting the essential goals of what I was trying to do, making a meaningful, useful impact on the ecosystem where I worked and connecting young people to the land. So about a year ago, they asked me if I wanted to come on board, and I said yes. And I got myself out of the beet field, out of the barn, and into the community. And I have been in charge of on-the-ground operations of our youth crews, which you saw on the farms there, and our Pittsfield Farmers Market, and planning for our upcoming youth farm. And it has been a remarkable journey. And today I can talk with you about my experiences going from the farm to Roots Rising and this impactful community work.
You want to show your
Yeah.
video and then you can.
We have a little clip of a video that some folks at Green Acres here with me today have never even seen.
Oh, wow. World premiere. That's
Yeah, it is. It's a world premiere of a 2-minute video at Green Acres. Just about the farm.
This is Wednesday, our harvest day, and this space we're in right now is our main farm area. It's about a ½ acre fenced in, and then we have another section behind that I can take you to. We grow mostly annual vegetables, herbs, and flowers. The farm itself is only 3 years old compared to the rest of the Green Acres programs. So this is still an area we're expanding. We probably have about double the amount of space we had last year in here, and then next year we'll have probably another whole section here that will be in beds. We've got some perennials over there. We have raspberries and asparagus. That whole mound over there, that's all watermelon. We'll start harvesting today. We use almost no mechanization in this garden, no large scale tractors. Most everything you see here is done with hand tools by our crew. It's readily accessible. It's a lot easier to just bring in an inexperienced young person who maybe it's their first time in a garden or farm space, maybe even their first job. It only takes a few minutes to show them how to use that, and right away they know how to do it, and they can participate versus if we had to train them on driving tractors. We really promote folks who come in here and work, especially our teenage crews, to take care of themselves when we work. It's hard work out in the sun. And so just creating camaraderie among our crew, making sure we take breaks, making sure taking care of themselves, whether they're hungry or they're thirsty or they need to sit down, is just as important as the work we're doing, if not more important. The whole property is beautiful, but we're just on the top of this tiny hill. I mean, every direction you look is beautiful, every season, every weather. It really never loses it. I've been on a lot of beautiful farms, but this one is probably one of the most beautiful. So yeah, it's an amazing property, amazing resource.
There's a lot of me in that video, which, not to be self-effacing, but the one thing I want to be really clear about is that my job is the farm director at Green Acres of the farm program. And so part of my job is to speak about it and work with the community about it. I have about 15, 16 years experience farming, but on the farm at April Hill, every day, all year, and in the height of the season, the work that is getting done, the vegetables you're seeing coming out of there, the food that's being distributed, all of the kudos goes to the farm crews. It is not me that is doing all of that work out there. From the seeds that are being started to the direct seeding, weeding, harvesting, everything you're seeing is crews are doing it. And so I just want to make sure, even though that is me in our world premiere video, that the real hard work goes to the crews out there. And so that's sort of the point of what we're doing at April Hill. I came to April Hill from a background in production farming, more mid to small CSA farms through New England and the Hudson Valley. And I ran my own cut flower farm for about 9 years and started to really miss doing vegetables. And I think when COVID hit, I really watched my community that were farmers pivot so quickly into being able to innovate ways to work together, to collaborate, to get food to people who needed it. And I think in watching that happen, I understood for myself I needed to find my way back into produce again. And also connected to Greenacres at that time, and so started my work there. And I mean, as I said in the video, I joke that I call myself a recovering, production farmer. I still do love like a big field and a tractor. I get excited about, but I don't think that is how I want to farm. And I've done that, and I do think it's a lot easier to extend the skill sets of hand scale to people. And I like people knowing that they can grow things without a ton of experience, without a ton of land, without a ton of equipment or money for that. One of the reasons I never had my own farm is I could not afford it. I still cannot afford to buy land around here or have a farm, and that sort of shaped my own farming story. So I like working at the smaller hand scale with the youth crews. But I had the great luck of starting on some really amazing and accomplished farms. A wonderful farm in New Hampshire that was like in its second generation, a family farm, and they are impeccable at what they do. They are incredibly successful. And I also learned I did not want to work the way they worked. When it was the first farm I worked on, we worked 6 days a week and half days on Sunday. There was no clear ending time of the farm, and it was fun. I loved who I worked with. I loved who I worked for, but it was just all consuming. There were no boundaries. And so I think for me, as I moved through farming, I learned some amazing farm skills, and also how I really didn't want to work for myself, like how I didn't want to treat myself, treat my body, and treat the people I work with as far as boundaries and physicality goes. So I do feel at Greenacres and with a farm crew that creating agency for the people who work there and self-care. I don't know if everyone who comes through there will want to be a farmer. I don't think everyone will. I really love that some people will. But as with job training and job skills, I think it's really important to make sure we're teaching people how to advocate for themselves and how to take care of themselves in workspaces. I think that's an incredibly important skill set in a capitalist. I take that seriously when working with you.
No, that's true.
And then just have to ask, can the farm crew raise their hands?
Yeah, if we're working on farm.
And then can we applaud them for their It's not all the farm crew, but some of the crew leaders are here, and they do an amazing amount of work.
So tell us who they are.
This is Bob DeLeo, who's our livestock farmer. He manages our sheep and our laying hens, and he also spends a lot of time with our vegetable farm, and he's the neatest, most organized person, which is amazing. And Maeve Wilbur here, who came on this year as our farm crew leader, and has been an amazing resource and addition to our farm crew. And we have Cecilia McPherson, who started as a TerraCore member and then stayed on with us as another farm crew leader, who's also one of our, you've been there longer than I have. I think you've been there longer than any of us on the farm crew. So yeah. Yeah.
Good. So I know you don't want to talk for a while, like you could. So we have lots of time for questions, and you let me know if people want to ask questions. I did have this thought. So both of you have worked as production farmers.
Yes.
You decided to do something else, but you are doing job training. You're teaching people how to farm. So are you concerned that we're not going to have enough farmers in the future? Is that what you are thinking about in part when you're doing your work?
I think that is a part of it. When I got into farming, it wasn't because I wanted to grow vegetables. It was because I wanted to make a meaningful impact on my community. And through the the production of food for my community. I realized how empowering the ability to create the nourishment that our community needs is. So I think connecting young people to the resilience that comes with being able to grow food for themselves and the community is a great first step in creating an empowered and resilient young person. What they do with that is up to them. I think we all felt as COVID came on the fragility of our food systems and the fear that came with not being able to create for ourselves what we need. And so passing on the real strength that comes from being able to produce your own seed, produce your own fertility, place it in the ground, nurture it, partner with nature, and then feed the people you love. I think that's a strength that resonates everywhere from a young person to our entire, virtuous community. So I think that's what I'm hoping to pass on. But through the young people I've mentored, both in Roots Rising, as interns on the farm, as volunteers, as staff, some of them get the bug and they keep farming, and that's cool.
Okay.
That's cool.
Sarah, how do you think about it?
I don't feel concerned that we won't have enough farmers. I think there are other intersecting issues that I worry about. I think that we won't have enough affordable farmland for people, and I think we don't have enough affordable housing for people who want to be farmers and many other labors. So I think, to me, currently the price of land and the price of rent, like the housing crisis and the land issue, is to me one of the biggest obstacles to allowing any generation to continue farming.
Another thought I have too is that, up until the Industrial Revolution, if you ate, either you or someone you knew really well had a hand in farming and growing food for themselves, their family, and their community. These are skills that we have. We're programmed to do it. It's in our genes. And I believe that the path to becoming, a successful person who can produce for their community doesn't have to be through like academia. It doesn't have to be through these, long and complex internships. It's really the kind of thing that someone can learn really beautifully by doing. So increasing access for young people to have all sorts of different opportunities to get their hands in the dirt and learn by doing, I think is a cool thing that we're both working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So I know you have questions or comments or other things you want to know. So feel free.
Yeah, I was wondering, I'm an old person. I was learning how to grow. I've been in Berkshire for 4 years and working on farms for the past 3, 4. And I've just managed to get a place where I had a tiny little garden in Great Barrington on my house, and I was able to grow so much stuff in there, like pumpkins going down the street and tomatoes crawling over the fences, and it was almost like a great, because I didn't know what I was doing. But now I got a place dedicated to can't afford it. That actually has land where we have, like, I just put down a 600 square foot garden bed, like cardboard, and like lasagna thing. But I still, even after working, I still feel like I don't really know what I'm doing. And I think Green Acres, someone had a program where you guys come to people's houses and kind of help them set their farm and stuff like that.
It might have been Green Acres at one point. We have a program called Front Lawn Food, which is where people in the community can purchase a garden bed, and in exchange for the price, and as part of their price of their garden bed, it's 2 for 1. So they pay for one that they have installed, and there's also one that is donated to an income eligible community member or family.
Right.
And then we also have a program called Helping Hands, where farms can hire, or community gardens can hire our crew to go and work for the day. It's subsidized to the farm, and the crews are all paid the same amount. So we have that, which is also helped with Berkshire Agricultural Ventures. But we don't specifically go to private residents, like places, and set up farms. Or set up garden spaces, but there, so we do some things like that, but more with community gardens, farms, and then it's our monthly program.
And similarly, like Roots Rising, our youth crew is currently, we work on local farms. So this season, we have been working with Red Shirt Farm, Holiday Brook Farm, Hancock Shaker Village, taking our crews to the farm, learning and working alongside the farmers there. We haven't gone to private residences in the past, but you know, hearing these kind of things, like there's a desire for people to begin to have further resources. As we develop the plan for our youth farm in Pittsfield, these community resources are certainly something that we want to invest in. And you know, myself, and I'm sure similar to you, you've learned the most from farming by trying and failing, being mentored by other people. I mean, I would say at the end of the day, you either get a vegetable to eat or you don't. So keep trying to stay
It's just nice to
But
have that keep that connection with the community while you're still growing food for yourself, and your neighbors. To keep the connection with the community that like I have.
And one thing that I would say is that like at our Pittsfield Farmers Market, we have a lot of people who are growers, you know, home growers who come in, they get to our giving table, they speak to our vendors, they speak to our farmers. So creating those third spaces where people who are growing can come together in an informal setting and just, you know, swap stories. You know, I've learned more about growing up to, you know, Kate from Holiday Brook Farm and say, oh my God, what's going on with my beets? She says the same thing to me, we figure it out. You know, those kind of connections can be a really valuable resource.
That is a good question. So we covered youth, although there's lots more to say about it. So farmers markets are a place to go if you're an older person and you want to learn more.
Yeah, go talk to the farmers. Farmers are happy to be off the farmers, swapping stories all the time.
I have to say that I've been taking some students from a course I'm teaching right now to farm business, including April Hill and Daniel Langfield. They're here today. Melissa Peter, Daniel Langfield. And they were really great about sharing ideas, and I think we'd be a great resource for people. So Daniel Langfield Farm, they do goats and goat milk and lots of other things. Okay, other questions? Yeah.
I have a question talking about how young people who pick the program move through the homework phase. So how do they get to you in the first place? And then if you're able to, if you track where they end up.
Yeah, for sure. So I can talk about Roots Rising. So we're a Pittsfield-based organization, and we actually go into the schools, into the community, and recruit. You know, we do a lot of, you know, videos like that, social media to get the word about what we're doing. And then 3 times a year, I go into the school and chat with kids at lunchtime. I didn't like the lunch period in high school, and now because like as a woman, like handing out cards about farming, it's quite an adventure. But I make some really cool connections with the students, and we talk, and they apply to our youth groups. A lot of them get interested too because someone else they knew did it, and they said it was great or cool or hard, but they enjoyed it. And we then interview them. Every single person who applies to Roots Rising gets an interview. And then we select our crews from the pool of teams that have applied for the season. They come on and work with us on our farm crew, either spring, summer, or fall, on local farms, at food pantries, in the community gardens. Once they've done a farm crew, they are eligible to apply for market crew. So then they're working with the farmers and the community to take the seeds that they planted in the ground to the next level, to the community. And then we have opportunities for alums as well. My assistant manager at the market is an alum of our programming. We get really close to the young people, and they often circle back in different capacities, you know, leading workshops, joining in our crews. We do send out surveys to track them specifically, but many of them we are still in contact with, and we hear, you know, we hear where they've ended up. Myself, when I was managing the farm at Hancock Sharing Village, I had seasonal interns who were from the Ridge Rising crews who worked on my farm. Farms at our market are staffed by alums of our program. So they come back to us in a staff capacity, with the vegetables they've grown on the farms that they work at.
That's
So it's really about creating like a long-lasting connection and community. And it's also about keeping young people with a passion for this work in the Berkshire and doing it here.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, so that we don't lose them to other places, which happens. Sarah, how do you get your?
Well, I sort of look at the farm program for Greenacres, it's relatively new, we're only in the 3rd year, but Greenacres has been around for 13 years. And they have a conservation and trails program that's been around for, I think, as that long. And we have some other programs. So I think Greenacres itself has had a presence in the community for a while. So, and have been hiring youth through those programs. So I think just being connected, a part of an organization that already exists and works with youth in the community and youth employment. So I don't exactly know how the youth come, through to the farm and apply. I think also farming is actually known to younger people right now, which is great. So that's how I don't exactly know how they find us, and I don't track them. And I think for the teens, I don't expect that they're going to want to be farmers if they come through. I would love if they wanted to come back. I hope we're creating spaces that youth want to come back to. And I think for our crew leaders or folks that are a little bit older, who are there year round or longer term, that feels like a different sort of relationship that's being built just over time. And I think, that is a part of community, is that you build relationships in my opinion, in order to make community, build relationships. In order to build relationships, it really just takes the time to do it. So yeah, I think I hope you've continued to kind of know about us and come through. And I hope they will want to return. But I think we still have to kind of see that our program is in the early years. Yeah.
Should recognize Will Compton, who's here, the
Yeah.
director of Greenacres.
I didn't make him raise his hand.
I noticed that, but I will. And Will's been to every single Think Food conference, so I want to congratulate him on that. But can you answer the question, Will? How do young people find you?
Oh, I mean, that's when we started, it was the same thing, little one period, still one period, social media.
Okay.
But it does, there's nothing stronger than word of mouth.
Yeah, true.
It's not a question, it's a comment. I just want to appreciate your neighbors and the Helping Hands crew. I'm one of the partners that's hired the Helping Hands crew 2 years in a row, and they have done incredible work for us. They've put in, I want to say, 48 wooden posts as part of a high tensile fence in the perimeter of, I think, 16 acres this year. And last year they fenced about a 5-acre pasture for us. So they really work. Many appreciations to Will and to Sarah and to the crew members here.
Yeah. Will and I did not say. I just said Will and I did not say any of that.
And the time that speaks to something important too, being involved with Ridge Rising as a host farmer for many years and now as the program manager. I know there were days on the farm, especially during COVID when we were so short-staffed, where the amount of work I had to do was insurmountable. And I'd look at a field and I would say, how in the world am I going to accomplish this? And there was like a dread and a fear that accompanied that. And knowing in a couple of days, I would have a crew of 12 energetic, full of fire, young people, skilled staff to help me accomplish those big tasks, gave me a feeling of hope. And I think sometimes our farmers are working out there on the land and that feeling of hope and connection to the community, and that there's somebody who wants to help is really valuable, really valuable.
Yeah, it's a really innovative program, and it's a real community-based program that we are lucky to have, so I'm glad to vote for you. It's like release and hope. Yes.
Yeah, it's one of the most time, it requires, I guess it's the most labor intensive, time consuming things that we do on the farm, and time is a very scarce resource for farmers. So being able to bring in Aaron, you to give us a hand is just, yeah.
And I think the crews, I'm sure both Greenacres and Roots Rising can have a really important impact on the ecosystem of the farm. When I was managing the farm at Shaker, we had about 2 acres in annual vegetable production. We had a CSA of about 80 members. We supplied food banks, we supplied our restaurant. And during my time there, I transitioned the majority of our acreage, I could never really crack how to do it with corn, into no-till beds. But the no-till hand-scale farming, it really is labor intensive. And these heritage practices come from a time where an entire community was involved in planting and maintaining the beds. And so if we wanted to go back to this hand-scale farming where we're not using the tractor, not cultivating over and over between our rows, it absolutely improves the ecosystem of your soil, but it requires many hands. And so having programs that, not every day, but, at certain times throughout the season can give your farm that bump in labor is, I think, really important as we kind of create this network of small, productive, regenerative farms. I was able to transition my farm to using a lot of leaf mulch, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without the increase in labor that I had from having the on my farm.
Wow, that's incredible.
And I think it kind of speaks to like these programs work well when they're really reciprocal. Like when the youth are getting a lot from the work and the farmers are as well. I know there were days where I was busy and stressed out, like, oh God, do I want 12 teenagers showing up today? And after my experience, like, yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Because they're trained already, because
absolutely helpful, absolutely wonderful impact on the farm. The farm is benefiting, the youth are benefiting.
Yeah.
It's a nice connection.
Yeah. I think we had a Zoom question. Do you wanna? All right. So, how do you respectively understand your organization's roles in local food systems? So, bigger question. Your role in local food systems.
I mean, I would just candidly say, I don't understand it yet.
Okay.
I know what we do with our food, but I think one of the pieces for me that I'm still like working on figuring out is how to be more deliberate with the food we're producing. We do right now produce food for a few different organizations that distribute to those who are in need of food in our communities. And I don't devalue that. I think that really does matter. But I also don't think it does a lot for like larger systemic change. And so I think it's, to me, that we do have a responsibility with the resources we have as an organization and with the amount of youth we have coming through there that do help us in our, in producing everything, to figure out kind of more deliberate ways to move our food, to create stronger relationships with the people that we're getting our food to. And I don't have the answers for that yet, but I definitely am always thinking about it. And trying to also pay mind to how many off-farm inputs we use within our own farm system, and also our seed sources. I think, to me, that's one thing that's maybe not talked about as much as I would like, which is just that we don't have food without seeds, and that having open pollinated seeds, not having seeds that are patented and trademarked, having regionally adaptive seeds, these are all really important parts of having food. And again, I think it's something that, I don't want people to have a ton of skill set to be able to do, like, you can save seed, you can save, a little bit of seed can plant hundreds and thousands more plants. So there are some like ways to save seed or ways to plant things if you're saving seed, but that's another piece of it. So I'm constantly thinking about this, and I wish I could say I understood and knew the answer for it, but I don't. I can only say that it is something I actively care about, and
well, that's
and having,
part of it, right?
thinking
That's-
about.
Gotta start somewhere. And yeah, we were at April Hill, and Sarah actually showed us right there how to, what was the plant you showed us to save seeds on?
I think we said, yeah, lettuce.
Here's the seeds. Here's how you say, no, right, so I think you are thinking about, you're also talking about inputs to the farm. So, I mean, that is part of the local food system, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sarah, I love listening to what you're saying. I can't wait to sit and chat after this. I was actually thinking about this as I was driving down. I was thinking about like the larger agricultural landscape of the Berkshires and how even within our county, we have these sort of smaller food communities. I feel really lucky. My work with Hancock Shaker Village and Ritz Rising and the Pittsfield Farmers Market, like we can really see the arc where, from the hand in the soil to the food into the bag of the customers. I think that's a really cool experience for me. It's a cool experience for our youth as well. We care a lot about equity, so we do a lot of work with subsidized foods like the Market Match, SNAP, HIP at our market. And I think that is unique in that the crew are working on the farms, the food's coming to our market, it's going to the families, that is feeding the crew. We feel that interdependence. And I think, the health of our organization is tied to the health of our regional food system in the Berkshires. So, when one of our farms is having a hard year, that shows up in the market, that shows up to our customers. And we care and we feel it all. So I feel very tied to the local food system in our sort of micro community. And I think that tie, that feeling of being tied and that feeling of caring is what sort of makes us reach towards that resilience that you were talking about. I'm sure all of the farmers here had that shocking panic when at some point during the pandemic, we weren't able to get the seeds that we needed to plant. That was shocking. And I think it showed the fragility of our local food system. But it also showed the potential we have to come together to create a more resilient community. Like I know I have been saving seeds for many years at Shaker. I didn't want to save all my seeds because it's remarkably complex and labor intensive, but I had really beautiful tomatoes. I had really beautiful cayenne. If we could have connected, like what do you have? Let's trade. We could have served our community with that need. And I think like programs like ours create those connections so that even if we don't have to create all our own seed right now in the Berkshires, we have the infrastructure and the knowledge to do it in the future if we need to, which is cool.
Yeah, it's such a positive way to think about it, and it's an opportunity. You're hearing the Seed Saving Network in Berkshires.
Yeah.
Great, so I saw a question over there earlier. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I lead the big farm in Hackney, and it's on our second year, so I'm sure you know, a lot of lessons. And we are no-till, and I just had a technical question for you that what kind of practices, regenerative practices do you use on your farm? Specifically, how do you manage weeds?
I think we can both answer that differently because we both farmed in different places.
Yeah, I mean, there is no farm system that weeds are always the thing you're dealing with. I mean, the ideal over time is you're diminishing the seed bank of your weed seeds, in your soil. We are low-till at April Hill. Some of the practices we use are, weeding. I mean, that's really it. It's weeding. Yeah, I mean, also it takes time. I mean, I'm saying it sort of flippantly, but like you have to get to know the soil you're on. You have to know what the weeds are. You have to know when they go to seed. You have to know when to hit them with what cultivation tool, what hoe you're using, or if you're using a tractor, whatever it is. So there are those methods. It's careful observation. It is one of the biggest thing I think farms deal with as far as like labor, is dealing with weed pressure. And then we use silage tarps, which is like a thing, it's like they're plastic. They really do a great job of killing off weeds and weed seed and prepping soil without us having to use mechanization. But there are always those decisions, and I'm really careful when I'm talking about farming and when I'm teaching and when I'm working with people to remind us all that there's always some compromise that are happening in the decisions we're making. The way I choose to farm, or we're choosing to farm at April Hill, it is not the only way or the best way or the one way. It is the way we're doing for our specific reasons. And the way you may do it, and Hadley might be different than the way Lauren has done it. So I just want to be aware of that when we talk about different farming methods. But yeah, there's no, man, if I knew the way to get rid of weeds, I would not be sitting here at this point. I would just be.
Yeah, I think what you said really resonated with me. Each farm is its own unique ecosystem, and each farm is sort of like guided by the brain and the hands of the farmer who's working with it. So every solution is going to be different, but there are some sort of guiding principles, and there are a lot of farms who have some like cool different bag of tricks that you might not have tried. So depending on the amount of acreage you have in production, what you're trying to grow, the solutions can be very varied. From weekly cultivation with a big giant tractor, which destroys soil biology, to hand weeding and hand mulching. What I found that's worked for me in sort of my small scale farming is to just understand, nature wants to take care of the biology of the soil. Bare soil is, super susceptible to erosion, UV, and so she's just trying to cover it up. So one, cover it up with cover crops, interplanting. That can be really kind of complex and challenging. Use what you have that is free and abundant, that you can keep out of the waste stream of your local sort of ecosystem. At Shaker, we had an incredible amount of leaves that we would collect from the community. So we had landscapers, the highway department, everybody just dropping off leaves all the time. Because when I walk out in the forest, I see the forest covered with leaves. I'm sort of obsessed with leaves. So wherever we could, we would mulch our bare soil with leaves. And so we'd be doing this like additive process, adding organic matter, and sometimes Halloween candy wrappers to our beds, but also making a really beautiful, thick covering to our soil. So we did that. If a field got a hand, we'd pull out the silage tarps at the end of the season. If a field was super dialed in, maybe our beds would be pristine and we just needed to add on to them, add some fertility on top and replant into them that year. Wood chips in the past, wood chips on the perennial beds, just covering everything up we can. And I've heard that thing about, depleting the weed seed bank, year after year after year. I've never been able to do that. you look over there, there's no weeds, you look back, there's like so much calistoga, and you look one more time and it's dropped all its seeds. So it's like using these, like mimicking nature, covering your soil to kind of get ahead of things. And over time, you'll find out what works for you on your farm.
Right. And then the leaves worked?
They're beautiful. Okay. They're beautiful. And like you get really close up, all these cool frogs and snakes and salamanders that live in your beds too. But I could just talk about these all day.
Okay. I thought I wanted to circle back to what you touched upon, Sarah, in regards to land access, and that you are hopefully, training the next generation of farmers or inspiring young people to know that they can do this, but they can't do that if they have nowhere to farm and nowhere to live. So I was just wondering if you could just expand upon that issue, both of you specifically, and in regards to what you're seeing happening in the Berkshires and what you hope to transform and what you would like people to know about those with large swaths of land or those who don't really know too much about this issue.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely getting outside my wheelhouse. But yeah, what comes to mind is like burn down Airbnb. But I mean, I'm serious, housing is a real issue. If anyone here rents, and I think there are some things in place that are working towards like land access. I think there are some of our land conservancy organizations. I think there are some nonprofits and organizations around that are working for land access specifically for farmers. I think we definitely could do more for BIPOC farmers, for sure. But I think there is like also the housing crisis is a real issue. So what do we do about that? That's the real $1 million question right now. I think individuals need to take responsibility. I think people who have more than they need to take responsibility. I think it really does have to be about redistribution and people making individual choices to not have multiple homes, not be doing short-term rentals for high amounts of money, for creating affordable, for communities to be municipal planning to create affordable housing that's not like segregated outside of the community. So I really hope it comes to municipal planning and we can make some hopefully fast acting short-term decisions, but have a sort of longer look into our future. But again, I wish I had that answer for how to create that. But I do think it's something that whether you're in food, whether you're in farming, whether you're in trades, whether you're in the nonprofit sector, whether you're in education, does not matter what your interests are. If you're in these communities, you need to be paying attention to housing and who has access and who doesn't, and who can afford it and who cannot. And I think we all need to be having those conversations and participating in figuring out solutions together.
It's hugely important in terms of equity.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Major issue, yeah.
I think like Sarah, this is outside my wheelhouse. I don't know if I have any solutions, but I've certainly experienced and witnessed, the challenges of having access to usable farmland in the Berkshires. Myself, I've ached for 100 acres since I've begun farming. I've worked in nonprofits. That is not in my future. Yet somehow I have found a way to farm land and make a meaningful impact on my community without the ownership. So I think, ownership of substantial acreage is a barrier to a resilient food community. Why does ownership have to be the path forward for farming in the Berkshires? But I understand people put in infrastructure, they dedicate their lives to stewarding land, they want to feel connected to it and not he's decided to parcel it off and sell it for second homes, there goes my life's work. So we need to have deep conversations, about farming in America and how access to land can be rethunk. I think also, Roots Rising has been working on securing land for our Pittsfield-based farm for a couple of years. And we're committed to being in the city of Pittsfield. That is our hope and our dream. We really want to continue to develop the work that we've done in that specific community. But, a post-industrial city that, has been affected by the companies that were there, economic and environmental way, finding workable land it is a challenge for that. And then finding land that is affordable is another challenge. The Berkshires are interesting in that there are so many beautiful farmsteads that have been turned into such homes or vacation homes. And I see these like rolling lawns and think like, what could our impact be on the food economy of New England if we turn this back into workable farmland? But, you know, these are big conversations that need to be had.
Yeah, in the next panel, we'll hear from Gabby Pereira from the Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust. And we'll also hear from Anita Delia from Not Our Farms, with the farmers who do not own the farmland, so that we can get into some of these questions. And we have Amanda from the Food Bank Farm, who asked a question earlier. So we'll talk about that later. Okay, so I think we have a couple of questions from our guests.
I think that was just the whole.
So, micro scale local farmer, one of the challenges I face is the cost of producing vegetables exceeds what my community can pay for it. How do you understand small scale farming role in food access, particularly for historically marginalized communities in our county? So we'll talk about small scale farming role in food access. And so we know that you make beautiful vegetables.
Yeah.
You need to charge a reasonable amount for them, but that is sometimes out of reach.
I think, you know, this is another really huge question. The true cost of food is not reflected in the prices we pay in the supermarket for industrial produced food. The environmental cost is there, the labor cost is there, like involved in producing that food, but the monetary cost is not reflected. So I think, you know, talking about the actual cost of producing food at a small scale in our community, and at the same time honoring that many people who are feeding in our community don't have the resources to pay those prices. So at our farmers market, we don't have all the solutions to those problems, but we're always working towards them. So things like the market match program. You know, if a shopper puts $30 on their SNAP card, with the help of organizations like DMV, we will match that $30. They have $60 to spend at the market. That can help bridge that gap. Other programs like educating about programs like HIP, which is $40 a month for a family to spend specifically at farmers market. You know, so I think conversation, education around the programs that are out there to help defray their costs, and then the larger conversation about how much it actually does cost to produce food in the Berkshires. And there are people who have the ability to pay the premium for really beautiful tasting veg, meat, and dairy in the Berkshires, and they do. And can we work with our communities for those people to subsidize food for everyone? I mean, there's a lot of solutions here.
And we have quite a few people from BAB here, Berkshire Agricultural Ventures. Can somebody run down the market match program and how it works for farmers?
Okay.
Dan?
Yeah, well, I mean, market match is basically matching, anytime somebody's paying with SNAP or WIC, I think both work, just SNAP. The funds that BAB is raising will match dollar for dollar. So, you know, $1 spent on SNAP is worth $2. And it's important to us is for BAB, for both, you know, food access, but also farm viability, farm financial viability. It's putting money in the pockets of farmers. So it's essentially subsidizing local, healthy, nutritious food, fresh food.
So for our questioner who's on Zoom, if you want to get in touch with Berkshire Agricultural Ventures, ask about market match. Yeah.
Well, kind of following up with the question that was asked there, I think part of what I was reading in that question was, you know, how Pittsfield's a great example. It's a spread out community, and I think some of the marginalized parts of the community have a hard time getting to the Roots Rising farmers market. So is there ways that you see that that, you know, that can there could be more access to people on the west side of Pittsfield, for example.
And I think, our farmers market is right downtown. It's accessible, to many people living in downtown Pittsfield who can come here on foot or public transportation to our market. But we're always thinking about these issues. How can we be more accessible? And I think, things like our mobile farmers market that came out during the pandemic, we were actually, getting food from locals' farms and able to deliver it right to people's homes and then able to use their benefits for those. I think one of the cool things about Roots Rising is we're in such close contact with our customers, with our farmers. We're hearing these problems. We're hearing, like, oh, I couldn't get a ride at the farmer's market this week. I couldn't use my hip. My family doesn't have vegetables. And we care about solving these problems. So we're always trying to be innovative and think of ways. So I think, as we move forward as an organization, that kind of access is always at the top of our mind. And I think our farmers market has better accessibility than many people having to drive out to the farm. So having things like CSA pickups at our market, things like that.
Great. Sarah, you want to talk about food access?
Sure. I mean, I think that this has come up now a few times where it's like, it would be great to just make it granular and say like, this is about food, but the truth is it's all so interconnected. Like these are all systems that are connected. And so why can some people afford food and some people can't? Because some people are absolutely not valued in our systems. They are not paid enough. They are not given enough equity. And so it's like the granular is food, the like large is like whiteness, it's capitalism, it's patriarchy. Like we know this, and so it's like if you have it all at the big, it's hard to tackle, and if you make it all granular, it's also really hard to tackle. And so I think for me, what I think of is just this idea that nobody is going to figure this out alone. And that if you have some of these privileges, if you can afford food, if you can afford land, if you do own a house, if you do have transportation, it is on us to figure out how to bring people along with us. And I do not think we get anywhere great alone. Like we have to bring, if you are doing well, then make sure your neighbor is doing well, then make sure your community is doing well. And I think there are these things like there are sliding scale opportunities, there are mobile markets, there are food deliveries, there's healthcare shares. There are these specific systems of making food accessible. And I think I've seen them really successful in places. I love tiered scale foods. Like I love if you can pay this much, then you're supporting somebody else. It's just like a great way to carry your community along. But I think it really is. It's never ending, I don't think in our lifetime, this conversation. And I think it really requires all of us as like individuals and then in our workspaces, in our friendships, in our families, in our communities, in our, school systems, whatever it is, to recognize our own privileges first and be really aware of them, and then really put in the effort to figure out how we support and lift up the community members that don't have that. Yeah.
Great, so that's all the time we have. We can ask our questions at lunchtime maybe, but thank you very much for